The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
Answering Legal has been pivotal to allow our virtual law firm to thrive. Without them, we would not be able to handle the call volume that comes to our law firm. We needed a service that would allow us to be able to take those messages, yet still focus on working with our clients and be able to call them back. Answering Legal has been phenomenal on getting a great customer service relationship with people that are calling into the firm, taking messages, giving us those messages, and we can get back to them very shortly.
Another episode of the Earley Show, sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. I'm your host, Chris Earley, a personal injury attorney in Boston, and I'm really excited. We have Luis Scott from Eight Figure Firm on the podcast today. As you guys know from all of our episodes, I always like to have super successful lawyer entrepreneurs who are truly getting after it, guys and gals who have been through hard things, they've persevered, they've stuck to it, they have a lot of grit. And that's why I wanted to ask Luis to be on the show. As always, make sure you sharpen those pencils. Luis and I are going to be getting into the business of law, how to do law better so you don't have to do everything yourself. We're going to get into a lot of those aspects. I'm really excited. And again, Luis, I'm really excited to have you on. Thank you for coming on today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited about today's talk and navigating how to grow businesses. Super excited.
So, full disclosure, you're the first guest I've had on the show that I haven't actually met myself, but I've read your book, The King of Growth, and I've seen you on social. I see what you're doing with Eight Figure Firm. So I wanted to get you on the show because you speak my language about helping other lawyers, about running a business, not just a practice of law, right? These things are near and dear, to my entrepreneurial heart. So I know, I've read your books, heard you on podcasts. I know your story, at least somewhat. But for someone who isn't familiar, could you tell us about your background, growing up, mom and dad, brothers and sisters? Take us to the beginning, right, and how this all started.
Okay. All right, all the way to the beginning. So here's the thing. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, but I was not born in Puerto Rico. And so people, they always assume I was born in Puerto Rico, but I wasn't. I did grow up there in my early years. I was actually born in Gary, Indiana. So nobody knows Gary, Indiana, unless you're from there, home of the Jackson 5. But I was born in Gary, Indiana. It's a crazy story. Really we don't even have time for that story, why I was in Gary, Indiana as a baby. But I grew up in Puerto Rico. My parents are Puerto Rican. And I have 3 additional siblings. I have an older brother and a younger sister, younger brother. And I just grew up in a traditional Hispanic family. I thought I was going to play baseball as a career. My dad played professionally. He got all the way up to AA. So I thought, I have the pedigree. I'm going to be the one that makes it. But unfortunately, injury after injury, I had an elbow injury, shoulder injury, hamstring tear, ACL. It just wasn't materializing for me. And so I had to look into another avenue. And that's how I got into the legal space. Was once that fell apart, I knew it was time to start looking into something different.
So clearly you're an entrepreneur, no question about it. How do you think you were influenced, growing up? Obviously dad, it sounds like, really stuck to baseball as long, held on as long as he could. It's so competitive to get to that level. By the way, what position did he play?
He played center field.
Center field. Okay. So he's fast and getting after the ball. That's a tough position. So, but I'm interested, growing up, when did you start working? Obviously you must have evidenced some entrepreneurial, inclinations. Like when did you have your first job?
Oh, so I was like a little kid entrepreneur, right? So my grandmother would ask me to go get milk. She'd give me $1 and I'd say, can I keep the difference? Like I was already working on commission. And so, if the milk was 90 cents, give me that 10-cent commission and I would add up. And I remember one summer when I was 8 years old, I saved a whopping $31 just doing jobs here and there. So I'm 8 years old, making $31. I mean, I thought I was living on top of the world. And then I kind of transitioned that into, mowing the lawn and washing cars and ironing clothes. I would iron my parents' clothes and they'd give me $3. And so I was just always looking for a way to make money. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't we grew up. I hate to say poor, but we definitely did not grow up like middle class or even upper middle class. But we grew up in an environment where money wasn't there. I mean, I remember my parents complaining about the water bill or the light bill, and close the door because the light is expensive. I find out today that the electric bill was like $60 every 2 months. It wasn't even a lot, but we just didn't have a lot, and so I grew up thinking to myself, I am going to be the difference. I am going to change the legacy of this tree. I am going to be able to provide not only for my family but for my parents as well, and my siblings. And, come to find out, all of my siblings are very successful, and they didn't need any help. And my parents ultimately, grew in their careers and so forth. But I did not want to be poor. That was like a big motivator for me. But it wasn't a motivator from the sense of I'm scared of being poor. It was more of a motivator of I am scared of not having what I want. And that was really, it was more of like a desirous motivation versus a fear-based motivation. And so, yeah, I grew up real young, was doing little entrepreneur things. But my very, very first job was actually American Eagle at the mall when I was 19 years old. And so I started working at American Eagle, and I loved being able to make consistent money. The minimum wage at the time was like $5.25 or $5.75. And I needed to have multiple jobs. So I worked at American Eagle. I worked at a company where a bug spraying company. I did the landscaping for the school. I worked on this landscaping, and I was an interpreter for people who were trying to learn Spanish. So I was a Spanish tutor. So I was doing everything I could to make money. And that was just part of my heart, was I just wanted to be able to make the money to support my family.
So humble upbringing, there wasn't, and I can relate. People, hear my story all the time. I grew up in a single parent household. There was, my father, he became an alcoholic, and he abandoned the family. He became homeless. So I've seen, personally, I've seen trauma, I've seen addiction, homelessness. So that, Luis, centers me and humbles me and makes me want to give my kids better than I had as a kid. So what you're talking about resonates with me in terms of just getting after it, wanting to have security, understanding what it's like to grow up without a silver spoon. So I hear you on that. And that stuff sticks with you, man. It's sticky. And I feel like firstly for me, I don't know how it's a benefit, because I wouldn't have that hunger if I had been spoiled and entitled as a kid. Same with you. I mean, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I love the meme that says that hard times make strong men make easy times make weak men create hard times. Yes. And I love that model, because I always ask myself the question, where am I in that paradigm, and how can I make sure that I don't create an environment where my kids have it so easy that they become weak, and then in their weakness they create more hard times. And so one of the things that I've really done is my kids have everything they want, right? My kids are growing up where we have multiple houses and boats and cars, and we fly first class. But when we go somewhere, I don't buy them everything that they want. If we go to Disney, I'm not buying them a stuffed animal everywhere they want. They have to learn that there are things that we do because I'm a family man and I want them to have the best experiences. But there are things that we don't do because I don't want you to end up thinking that life is just easy, because that leads to you making it very difficult for the next generation. And so I love that. And I do believe that hard times made me a stronger person. And I do believe that strength is allowing me to make it easier for my kids. Now the question is, can I make sure that I don't let them follow that paradigm of easiness turning into weakness and weakness turning into hard times for future generations? And that's kind of what I'm focused on when I think about legacy creating.
I like that. It's hard. It's hard being a dad. I mean, moms have it like tremendously hard. They're like the real deal. Us dads, like, we got a lot to worry about, but like they have it harder. But still, being a dad and what you just talked about, that balancing act, it's like you're on this. It's such a hard line of like making sure they have everything, but not giving them everything, right? Like access to your time, access to your heart, access to dad, but not access to like things that aren't going to help form them into strong eventual adults. Like, that's so tricky for me, man, because I want to give my kids everything, but at the same time, like, I want you to be a hard ass worker. Like, I want you to get after it,
Yeah. Well, the thing is that recently I was taking my kids to New York. So I have two older boys, 13 and 11 next week. He turns 11. And I love to do guys trips because I want to grow up where they have memories of just us three going and having these guys trips. And I went to New York and my kid forgot his headphones.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my problem, that you forgot your headphones.
Yeah.
And so now he wants me to buy him some new headphones, but he wants the Beats Studio Edition. And I had a choice. I could either buy him this and show him that his actions have no consequence, or I could tell him, sorry, buddy, like, you forgot your headphones.
Yeah.
You're just going to be on the plane without headphones. And the $300 was literally immaterial to me. It
Right.
would have done nothing. It would have, I'm spending on a 2-day trip, $3,000-$4,000. It would have done nothing for me.
Sure.
But it's the principle of the matter. I cannot create an environment where you believe that every mistake you make, I have to fix. There are certain things that you have to. So that's the balancing act for me. It's like, I do things out of love, but I'm not going to do things to correct every mistake you make, because I'm going to make you weak, and I can't afford that to happen.
Well, because that's going to, those things stick with them into adulthood. So those are choices that are difficult, but also easy, right? Because you seem like you got, core values, you kind of know where you have your rudder in the water, and you know where you're going with business,
Of course.
with kids, and have that principled approach makes this challenge a whole lot easier. But, look, we can talk about the business of law and all this stuff, but what it comes down to is, like, how does the business serve our family needs so that dad is around as much as possible for those New York City trips? I'm bringing my family to New York City next month. Like, that stuff matters. Like, he's not going to remember, like, our kids aren't going to remember, like, that possession or whatever it was. But
Right.
The trip with dad, right? The thing that's the stuff. And I'm super sensitive because I didn't have a father, right? And so that I really didn't do. But that's my view of business, Luis, is the business serves my life. And a lot of lawyers, I know you probably see this all the time, have it the other way around. They must serve the business. And that's disaster central, man. That doesn't work.
But the reason that they serve the business is because a lot of lawyers find their identity in their business.
Yeah.
And so if your identity is the business, then the business is a representation of who you are as a human being.
Yes.
And I tell lawyers when I coach them, it's, your business is an instrument. It is a vessel. It is a vehicle for accomplishing what you want in life. It's no different than me. The law firm, when I was a managing partner of my first law firm and then my second law firm, it was never about me becoming more egocentric. It was never about me saying, look at me, I'm a CEO, I'm a COO of a law firm, I'm a managing partner of a law firm. It was to provide the education and experience so that I could live out my purpose. And my purpose was always teaching and coaching and helping other people succeed. And so that was my purpose. And so your purpose, even if you're a lawyer and you own a law firm, your purpose is not that. There's something greater than that. That's your function.
Right.
That's what you do for a living. The question is, what is your purpose? And your purpose is more than just your law firm. And a lot of lawyers just don't understand that.
More often than not, I feel like that's where our profession is behind the times. So, I know you worked your way, through school, you got through law school. Now, you've, scaled up 7-figure business, 8-figure business. Do you have a background in business, or are you kind of self-taught on this?
I'm pretty much, I don't, when you say a background in business, I do have a degree in accounting. So I have a business degree in accounting.
That's helpful,
so
for sure.
Yeah. So I went to undergrad. I graduated, the accounting honor society, like everything. I was always very top of my class. And I only took accounting because someone said they make the most out of undergrad. I saw this chart, and the chart had jobs from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
Number one job was accounting. I was like, I'm doing that one. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And I really kind of hated every minute of it, but man, it taught me so much. It's amazing how many lawyers don't know how to do an Excel spreadsheet. And so it taught me a lot about the economics of business. And I did take business classes. So that was kind of my background, but I just had a genuine desire to learn. So I tell people I've read over 300 books cover to cover, and then I've read another 600 shorts. So books that you can do on one of those apps. I've done 600 of those. So in total, I've read about 900 books. I've also listened to somewhere around 10,000 hours of audio and video on growing businesses. Now, most of that was on driving. I used to drive a lot for my job. And so, it's amazing on a 2-hour drive, 4 hours a day you could spend just listening, an hour into work, an hour out. A lot of people listen to music. You don't grow listening to music. So I just spent my time listening to podcasts and so forth. So that's how I got my acumen for business, but then also owning businesses. I've technically essentially owned a business for about 15 years. And that, the learning on the streets is one of the best ways to learn when it comes to being an entrepreneur.
100%. And just back to the education, they call it the rolling university, right? You can learn so much, just getting into a podcast, getting into a book. I mean, so you're a curious guy and I'm curious too. And that's how you level up. Because what good is it to you as an attorney in an organization if you're just like same old, like you have to challenge yourself. You got to grow, right? All right. So you got out of law school. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Take us, where'd you end up right after law school? What was the path generally?
Well, before I got out of law school, funny story, I didn't think I was smart enough for law school. So if there's people listening right now who aren't lawyers and are wondering, can I be a lawyer, or maybe are in law school and wondering how their career is going to end up, I didn't think I was smart enough for law school. If it wasn't for a judge that I met when I was an undergrad and studying in business law, I don't think I'd go to law school. He gave me a 3-month internship, and that internship, it completely changed the direction of my life. And so I went to law school believing I wasn't smart enough, just trying to get out of there and try to pass. My whole goal was like, I'm going to get out of there. I'm going to pass the bar. I'm going to own a law firm. And that desire to own a law firm came from an experience I had on that internship. And so I go to law school. I get out of law school. I was working at a law firm at the time, and that law firm offered me a job. So I became an attorney there. And I went from being the attorney to the managing partner of the firm. And what's interesting is I was there 15 years. And from the time I started as a part-time receptionist to the time I left, I became the managing partner. I mean, talk about the American dream, right?
That's fantastic.
From reception to partner in the same firm. And so it was a really unique and cool experience for me to have.
I don't know if you can relate, but sometimes, there's an imposter syndrome, it's like, and I can relate to you. Like what you were just saying, that resonates with me. Like, I didn't feel like, I didn't go to like a top tier law school. I got waitlisted and had to like work my ass off. I had to work hard in law school just to get through.
Right.
And so that's something I definitely can relate to. But like, this stuff isn't like this stuff we're talking about. We're going to get into it in a second. Isn't like that. It's not that complicated, but it's not easy. Like, this is about like going to law school and working your tail off, like growing a business, doing it the right way, doing your reps every day, getting in the gym, right? But putting the weight up consistently. But like what you and I are talking about to get into is not like that sophisticated. It's not like some, esoteric stuff. We just do the reps. We've read the books,
right? Listen
to the audio tapes, and we're teachers. You got to give. You're a giver, and it's gratifying, right? And I'm very impressed. Like, you've definitely succeeded at a very high level. So, I was, I read King of Growth. This is about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Very great book, King of Growth. Pick it up on Amazon. I think I wrote about the book on LinkedIn. I was at an airport going to Mastermind. I said, hey, I'm just on chapter 1. This is a really good book. Get this book. So that book stuck with me. My headspace at the time was not a branding heavy approach. It was more like direct response. And I'm still direct response, but I just picked up literally a week ago a bunch of billboards. And I'm
awesome.
Evolving, right? I know you're heavy on the, brand, branding. And I heard you say, which is interesting, direct attribution isn't really what you chase. It's the marketing that compounds and that creates the referrals. So, you built up a 7 and 8 figure law firm. That's unusual. What is it about your approach that allow you to reach those levels?
So one of the things that I did in the second edition of The King of Growth, which is coming out in February, including the audio version of it, is that I clarified the levels of your marketing plan. So from 0 to 3 million, you really should be direct response. And because you need cases now. But from 3 to 8 million is when you start transitioning to that more branding approach. And then at 8 million and above, you want to be full brand. Now, I'll tell you, because I'm such a big believer in brand, when I started 8-figure firm, I went all in on brand, and we're 83% brand currently. We'll do 10 million in revenue this year at 8-figure firm, and because brand reduces the cost of acquisition and increases the amount that you can charge. the better your brand is, the more you can charge. For instance, Nike has a better brand than Payless. And so Nike can charge $250 for their sneakers. Payless cannot charge $250 for their sneakers. They both do marketing. They both sell shoes. They both accomplish what you need, which is soles on your feet. But the brand is what carries the weight of what you can charge. And so brand is important. But at the beginning, you need cases. We need revenue coming in the door, and cash flow is very, very important. So in the new book, I clarify this because I had a lot of people who were saying, I don't want to do 60% brand. I need cases today. And I said, well, no, I wrote the book for people who are like $3, $4, $5 million. And I did not realize so many people were going to pick up the book that were like $1 million. And most people are not thinking about being the king of their market at 1 million. That happens when you realize you can do it. So I went back and I clarified that because yes, I'm a big proponent of brand, but you also need to make sure you have money coming in the door. And so the reason the strategy works is because from 0 to 3, you're generating leads. From 3 to 8, you're transitioning, but still spending a significant amount on leads. And then from 8 on, the brand has taken over, it's taken hold, and it's going to be able to propel you. Now, in the book, I talk about width and depth. Width is what you accumulate when you're advertising. That is just imagine a horizontal plane, right? A horizontal plane is the amount of cases that you're getting from advertising. And that horizontal plane never ends. From the east to the west, it never ends because you can advertise more and more and more. Depth, however, is the vertical plane. It's what is generated from the width that you've created. And so the reason referral strategy is not good is because the depth of your business will eventually end. If I refer you, you refer Sally may refer John, but John may decide never to refer anybody. Yep. The depth ended.
Yeah.
Where you can control width with more marketing spend. And that's why it's important. Now, what does brand do? Brand enhances the width and the depth. And what that means is that with brand, the width can be wider, and with brand, the depth can be deeper. And so when you have more width and you have greater depth, that's what we call creating momentum. And that's what David Nagel calls the quantum leap. You create a quantum leap in your business because now you're simultaneously building the width and building the depth. And what happens with lead generation is that lead generation specifically is width building without brand and without loyalty. And therefore, the people are less inclined to refer. So what you'll find is a personal injury firm that I work with that is primarily lead generation, but has hardly any referrals. Last year signed 1,000 people and had 35 referrals because the lead generation is not building any depth.
Right.
It's only building width, and that creates stagnation in your business. So that's why I'm so heavy on brand. But yes, build that width, build that lead generation, but eventually you got to graduate to the depth building and to the brand building.
Yeah, that was really good stuff. I've had a lot of smart cats on the show, and that was very good what you just demonstrated with that visual of the plane, right? So what resonates with me is, past 3 million, sorry, let me back up. Did you do direct response for a time, or you got into branding from the jump?
With the law firm. So when I first started the law firm, yes, we did direct response immediately. Yeah.
And that got you so far, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. But with 8-figure firm, because I was already 20 years into my journey and I knew branding works, I went immediately into brand. I basically did not do any direct response. Plus, I didn't know if I could acquire lawyers through direct response. So I was like, I don't know if I could acquire them anyway. Might as well put all my money in brand. I know it works. Now, look, I may have delayed not going into direct response for lawyers, from a consulting standpoint. Yeah. But the fact that in my 4th year we'll do 10 million, I mean, I'm satisfied with that result. And so I still think brand carries the day.
So I believe I've seen you write generally 20% spend should go towards marketing. Is that where you stand still?
25%. 25% should go.
Okay.
Yep. So 25% should go towards marketing, but you should work to acquire one case at 20% of the average fee. And so you want a 5x return on your marketing. So if you're spending $1 million, you want $5 million in return. But that million represents 25% of the revenue you generated last year.
That's fascinating to me. Yep. I've seen, I think I heard you on a podcast. Let me back up. John Morgan was our first guest on the show, and he's famous for saying graveyards are filled with irreplaceable people, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so very true. And I've heard you talk about there's a million lawyers, and practically all 1 million of them think I'm the best guy or gal to do the job. And
Yeah.
so they're self-limiting, they're stressed out, they don't get time for their kids. That's what we said. This is all about having time with your family. And so, you talk about with eight-figure firm being very intentional. Where do you see lawyers get tripped up when it comes to the headspace? Like, no, I'm Chris. I got to do all the work myself. No, Joe Schmo can't do it as good as me. Like, what are you seeing out there as you're educating other attorneys?
Here's the funny thing. I think that the lawyer's best use of their time is actually in marketing their business and selling, and that they should do that. They should leave that last to be delegated out, and they should delegate out the lawyer work first. Lawyers do it backwards. The first thing they do is hire a salesperson. The first thing they do is hire marketing people, and they keep doing the work. And it's like, when you're doing the work, you can earn $500 an hour in PI, maybe $750 an hour if you break it down. But when you're doing marketing, you can earn $10,000 an hour. You can earn $50,000 an hour because of the marketing strategies and the sales strategies. And so I think people get tripped up in delegating out what they shouldn't and not delegating out what they should. And that's where people get tripped up. And so for me, if I'm dealing with an entrepreneurial lawyer, I always tell them the first place you get out is the administrative work. Number 2 is the legal work. Number 3 is the marketing, and number 4 is sales. So in that order, you don't get out of anything out of order, because then the business will sacrifice because you've left your post.
Where should the lawyer be living then at that stage of growth? What does the day-to-day look like generally? What's your focus?
So I have a CEO calendar that I teach, and it's on Monday, they have 4 hours of focus time on marketing. Tuesday, 4 hours of focus time on operations. Wednesday, 4 hours of focus time on legal work. Thursday, 4 hours of focus time on finance. And Friday, 4 hours of focus time on administration. I believe any law firm owner that is above $1 million in revenue, who has already delegated out the legal work, can work 20 hours a week and build a business.
You get juiced up, I could tell, by teaching, like it lights you up, and I love that. And I like teaching as well. What is it about that aspect that gives you energy? Like, because not a lot of lawyers are doing this. So it's a competitive space, right? It's not like, there's a lot of people in it, but what do you take from it? Like, how does it light you up helping other lawyers, teaching them the way?
Several years ago, yeah. I mean, I went through, a period of my life. I was divorced previously, now almost 8 years ago. And I went to a counselor, and I was trying to find out what my purpose in life was. And I realized that my purpose was to lead a life of significance. And that I felt like that could encompass everything in my life. And because I loved it and had this passion for teaching, I wanted to be significant in the lives of other people. When I think about the fact that the lawyers who've worked with me in eight-figure firm have generated $1 billion in revenue. Last year alone, served 50,000 clients nationwide. What a significant impact. I don't care about my name being on it. I care about how I feel when I go to bed. The fact that 50,000 people just last year were served by members of eight-figure firm. To me, that is leading a life of significance. What excites me about teaching is I love when the person has the light bulb go off. I love when they go from a posture of, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if it'll work for me, to, oh my gosh, this is not that bad. This is actually pretty easy. I recently had a lawyer where I told him, he was a PI lawyer recently coming into the space, and I said, meet 30 chiropractors in 30 days and you're going to get sign up 10 people. Post on social media. You're going to meet 30 chiropractors. But how is it going to happen? They want business from us. Just trust me. Meet 30 chiropractors in 30 days and you're going to sign up 10 people. That's what I told them. I tell every new PI lawyer to do the same thing. And so we went down, and I went to a couple of visits. We went to 2 lawyers. We only met 2 lawyers. 3 days later, he had 2 new clients. 30 clients in 30 days. I love, and when the light bulb goes off, to me, it just feels so gratifying, because I know that I'm becoming significant in the lives of not only that person, but also in the communities that they serve. So that's what really sets me off, is this idea that I can make an impact in you, and you can make an impact in thousands of people. And to me, that's amazing.
So yeah, that's another writer downer. That's a strategy, I never really heard before. A lot of the stuff, I read a ton, Luis, and a lot of the stuff you're talking about, you're making me think in different ways. And I'm sure it's going to do that for the listener too of this podcast. I'm going to ask you a selfish question, just kind of to billboards, right?
Yeah.
I've heard you should cluster them. right?
Yep.
What's your approach? Because I'm definitely a rookie on billboards. Any approach? Do you treat billboards differently than other media, or is it still brand is brand is brand?
So brand is brand is brand, but I'll tell you. So let me start from the top. Whenever you're deciding any channel that you're going into, the first question you have to ask yourself is, who's my ideal client? Where can I find them?
Yeah.
So the idea of clustering has to do with location, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with the client. You may cluster them in a community that your client is not actively in. And so the first question is, who's my client? Where can I find them? Then you're going to surround them. You're going to create that halo effect with the billboards. Now, my belief is you don't do billboards unless you can do one of the other big three. There's three primary mass media techniques. There's TV, radio, billboards, and you want to have two of the three in conjunction with your social media, right? So social media, you're going to retarget people who go to your website. You're going to do awareness and lead generation campaigns on social media. You're then going to drive them to your website. Your website will then retarget them with display ads. Then you'll have the billboards for driving and radio while they're in the car or TV when they're at their home. But you need to do two of the big three to reduce your ROI, or to increase your ROI and reduce your expense. I have a firm that has a big billboard budget, $2 million a year. One of the biggest billboard budgets that I've seen. Had no radio, no TV. Average cost of acquisition, $4,000. We're now transitioning him into other types of marketing. We're reducing his billboards as the contracts expire. We're increasing the digital presence. In a matter of just 30 days, he's already reduced his cost of acquisition by $500 or $600 just by removing that single channel strategy. So I never want to be single channel focused. And so you want to think about social media as a multi-channel strategy, digital as a multi-channel strategy, and then mass media as a multi-channel strategy. So whatever avenue you're picking, you need to have more than one thing going on. In social, you can't just do organic. You need to do organic and paid. On digital, you can't just do SEO. You need to do SEO, pay-per-click, LSA, lead generation. On mass media, you can't just do TV or radio. You have to do TV and billboards, or radio and billboards, or billboards and TV, billboards and radio. Like, you need to do a couple of things. That's going to maximize your return, and that's going to reduce the cost of acquisition.
Before we got on this call, I came to the conclusion a little while ago that you must be on TV to create an 8-figure firm. It sounds like that's not the case.
Not only is it not the case, I have an immigration firm that should do $20 million next year that doesn't have any TV advertising at all. They do have billboards, buses, radio, very strong on Facebook. Immigration, if you're an immigration firm listening and you're not spending $50,000 a month on Facebook, assuming you can spend it, I mean, you're losing out on so much business because Facebook is a hotbed for immigration clients. And so again, it's where are your clients? Who are they, and where can I find them? And going there. I have another firm out of Texas that does mail outs. Believe it or not, mail outs, signing 100 people every single month, sending out letters. How is that? Because their clients can be found through that avenue. And he realized that. And he's signing over hundreds, not 100, 200 people a month, sending out mail outs. He spends $40,000 a month mailing out letters. And that's how he signs 200 clients. So you got to figure out who is my client and how can I find them, and then you need to live there
and stay there and have the stomach to spend, right?
Absolutely.
For the tough months. See, that's where 7-8-figure firms triumph or excel. It's the fortitude to look the other way, hold your nose, look the other way when you had a tough month, but you still got to keep up that that spend, that big spend.
Absolutely,
you got to stick to it, man. Because then you lose all your momentum. You can't take a month off and shut her down for a month, right?
Yeah.
No, you got to add fire, add kindling. You got to keep going in and
there's an exponential effect to your growth and an exponential effect to your decrease too. So, I get firms to spend 25%. I have a particular firm in mind, got them to 25%, signing 130 clients a month. And then they're like, we're signing too many. Let's cut back. They didn't talk to me first. I would have told them absolutely not to do that. My suggestion would have been find the people and let's figure it out. But they cut back, not a lot. They cut back down to 20%. Well, they didn't lose 5% of their 130 signups. They lost 50% of their 130 signups.
Right.
Because because spending 25% is a threshold number. It's like an annuity.
Yeah.
At some point, the annuity will pay you forever and ever and ever and ever. But if you have $1 less, eventually it'll run out. If you have 1% less, it'll eventually run out. And so if you want that pipeline, you need to get to that 25% well positioned, and don't retreat from that. And you'll see the biggest result through that.
Let me ask you something. So, for a younger lawyer listening to this, right? They're starting out, they're hearing it, but they're just like, dude, I don't have it in the bank account. You had to start somewhere. It sounds like you had to get after it on your own. Where would you start if 20 years ago, Luis, just starting out, no one knows his name, he's on billboards and TV, like what would you do on a shoestring budget to start your branding effort?
I love that question because it's very common sense when I explain it this way. If I wanted anyone to know about my law firm, what would I do? I would tell them. If I wanted a lot of people to know about my law firm, I would tell more people. And so if you're starting on a shoestring budget, you have to increase the activity. I think so many people spend too much time on strategy and not enough time on activity. Increase your activity.
Yes.
Go meet more people. I remember when I started the Scott Law Firm, no money, no budget. I didn't have anything to start this firm. I went out and I joined the Rotary Club, the local, a bar association. I went and spoke at an event. I went and met my banker, my barber, my insurance, the baker. I went to restaurants. I increased my activity, and I'm not unique. In my first month, I signed 22 people, 100% referral, because I was engaged in so much activity. Was I exhausted? Yes. But 5 months later, I had my first $100,000 month. Activity trumps strategy. You still need strategy. Don't get me wrong. I'm real big on planning, especially as you get bigger. You need to sharpen that axe, which is what the plan is. But in the beginning stages, it's going to be a lot of sweat equity. It's going to be a lot of time put into it. I remember working all day, and then at night I was building my website, built my own website, built my own digital campaigns, built my own blogs. I was doing that at night, and during the day I was meeting lunches. And go to the attorneys that you know. If you're a new attorney, you're probably just out of law school, or maybe within the last 5 years out of law school. Go contact every attorney that you know, every single one, and let them know you're open for business. Contact lawyers that do what you do. PI is beautiful because there's a funny, dirty little secret about PI lawyers. None of them want to litigate. Strike that. Most of them don't want to litigate. Go to the lawyers and say, if you have cases you don't want to litigate, I'll take them off your hands. We'll do a fee split. Like, there's a way to get business. You just have to get creative and be willing to meet people.
I love that, man. That's, I hope people are writing that down, because like that's common sense, yet it's very elusive for many people. The daily activity, the golden habits. You talk about speaking, right? And be intent. You talk about being intentional. Be intentional. I just spoke at the Miami NTL. I had 100 lawyers in the room. That's better than me having 100 coffee dates, right? So like leverage and get smart about this stuff. Like,
yes.
I'm not the sharpest, tool in the shed, but I'll outwork the average bear. And that's, I think, what you did at the beginning and today, because this is very accessible, right? You just have to like get after it. But those things, I hear this word compound, right? This flywheel, Jim Collins, right? Good, great. Yep. This flywheel is just exploding, and everybody, you were just, you weren't, 20 years ago, not as many people knew you. Now it's, looking back, things have changed a lot, but it took a hell of a lot of work, but it was also very doable. Like, something, you got, you're not missing kid stuff, and you're present. Like, this is, you can have all this stuff, to the attorney starting out, but you got to like do the work. And I think we talked about, Luis, at the very beginning, hunger. Right? Like, that's what this is. Like, you either want it or you don't. I do, you do. So I will pay the price. You pay the price of like whatever that takes to get after what you're trying to get to, make impact, legacy.
We know that hunger drives our activity, because if you've ever seen that show Naked and Afraid, you have people who would never eat a lizard, who would never eat a spider, who would never eat a snake. And all of a sudden they find a spider and they're roasting it, and they're licking their fingers. It's beautiful. And they're like, they're like singing over it, because hunger drives activity. And I think that what happens with people is that the perception of others prevents us from fulfilling our purpose. And I wrote about this recently on LinkedIn. I'm so much more interested in fulfilling my purpose than I am about the perception that people have of me. So when people say, Luis, you send too many emails. No, I don't, because I have a family to feed.
Oh, hell yeah.
Luis, you put out too much content. It's no, I don't, because I have a family to feed. Like, my purpose is much more important than your perception. And if you don't like me, you can defriend me.
Yeah.
You can unsubscribe. You can unfollow. You can do whatever you want. I'm sending this because I have a message that is going to help millions of people worldwide. And I believe that. And I also have a family to feed. And so I'm not going to let you drive what I do. I'm going to do what I do.
I think Zig Ziglar once said, timid salesmen have skinny kids, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
hell yeah, right? It's like, I don't care if you unsubscribe. I want you to unsubscribe, because then I'm just, you're probably killing my open rates anyway because you're not opening my stuff. So unsubscribe if you don't want to hear me early all the time. But I will hit you with emails twice. You can't be shy in this game. I teach that to my kids, Louise, right? Like, you can't be shy. You can't be in the shadows. Go after. That's where you get opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
Being bold. You gotta just
And you never know when the person's going to respond, right? The phrase that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
The teacher was always there. The student's not ready. It's like home sales. The house that is for sale today may not be for sale tomorrow, but the house that's not for sale today may be for sale tomorrow. And so the client that I want tomorrow may not be looking today. And so I have to hit them every single day in the event that when they're ready, they come on. And so that's my approach to marketing. That's my approach to teaching my employees. I spend a lot of time developing my employees so that when the moment comes, they have the tool in their toolbox to respond to the moment. And I think it works in every app.
Meet the client where they are, because you're hitting on billboards, on social, radio, whatever it may be, right? But they keep seeing your name pop up. Oh, I got to give this guy a call. I need him today.
Absolutely.
We talk about, reading all the books, all the podcasts. I look back, I think the E-Myth by Michael Gerber sort of like gave me whiplash. Like, what the hell was that? This is different. Was there something that you learned somewhere that kind of like gave you whiplash and changed your approach?
Okay, so I have a couple of books that were very influential for me, but the book that probably drove home the concept we just discussed about being more purpose than perception based was Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Okay.
Yes.
When I read that book and I realized that I was spending so much time caring about things that didn't matter, and I needed to start caring about things that actually mattered, because that's what really the book is about. It's not about not caring about anything or saying, I don't care about what you think. It's about really caring about the things that matter. It freed me up to assess in my life what really mattered in my life. And when I made that assessment and I boiled it down to like 5, 6, 7, 10 things, everything else became just things out on the perimeter.
Right.
That your opinion of me became a thing on the perimeter. If you're not somebody who's sowing into my life, which was another lesson that I learned, if you're not investing in me, then you don't get to divest from me. You don't get to take from me if you're not investing in me. And so this idea that I'm going to give you any thought, that I'm going to let the TikTok guy who told me I was the worst consultant in the world, if I'm going to let that bother me, you don't invest in me. You don't get to take from me. And so that book completely changed me. And it's unfortunate that I didn't read it until I was in my late 30s, but it's probably one of the biggest moments for me in my life was reading that book.
I like that. That's empowering, right? Just it's frees you from really caring and not giving an F.
Yes.
Just want to wrap up, and I want to ask you, what motivates you?
I am motivated. Some people would say this is a fear, but for me, it's a calling. I'm motivated by this idea that I may die and my life was not meaningful. And I am searching for meaning, both for myself and for my family and what I do. And I don't know if I'll go in the history books, because, they say that the history books are written by the leaders of the world, right? The generals of the world, the people who won wars and so forth. So maybe I will be forgotten in the history books, but I never want to be forgotten in the lives that were formed because of my existence. And so what motivates me every day is to live a life of meaning and to be significant for other people. And if I can wake up every day and feel like I have made a difference in somebody's life, if I feel like I've added value to somebody's life, if I feel like I've been significant and given meaning to my own life and to theirs, then I sleep satisfied. And that's what motivates me when I get up.
We're talking about business, but that's a pretty good KPI right there, right? It's like next level KPI, because that's all that matters, right? It's not about the data. It's about the life, the purpose, the legacy. How are you denting this world, right? And that's big, right? I think that's really important. Let me ask you finally, what's your greatest success in life so far?
Man, my greatest success to me is overcoming everything that people said would knock me down permanently. That was the biggest thing. I've endured a lot of things. I wrote about it in my book, It Has to Hurt. And every one of those setbacks, somebody told me you were not going to bounce back. And the fact that I have bounced back every time, I bounced back from bankruptcy, from my house being repossessed, from my car being in repossession and house in foreclosure. I bounced back from a divorce. I bounced back from a partnership breakup. The fact that I've bounced back every time, to me, has been the greatest success of my life.
That's awesome, man. Resilience, right? That's why I wanted to have you on the show. That's what it's about.
Yep.
Well, look, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. How can people get in touch with you?
So my website, luisscottjr.com. So LuissScottJR.com. You can find all my links, social media, booking me for speaking engagements, and my books. And everything's right there. And also information about 8-Figure Firm.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check it out. Thank you so much, Luis. Really appreciate it. All right.
Thanks, Chris.
That's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel.